Hi guys! So today we're going to look at how do microorganisms spread. And by looking at the spread of microorganisms, it will help us understand how do germs really get around. Alright, so I'm going to show you on the slide a few pictures, some of which may be familiar in terms of the spread of microorganisms. So we have direct contact. There may be indirect contact, which is touching an object which was touched by someone else, which may have had the germs on their hands, etc. And there's one more picture here, which refers to the contamination of food and water. And this is another way in which microorganisms spread. On the next slide, we're going to look at in more detail all the different ways microorganisms get around. But before we do, I want you to think about it, really think about it. How do these germs spread and get around? Right, so there's one method of transmission referred to as person to person, where we say bacteria and viruses can pass from person to person through blood, saliva, or being coughed or sneezed into the air. There's another method of transmission referred to as a foodborne infection, where food or water, let's say, which has not been stored correctly, or it has been stored for a longer time than it ought to be, can contain a lot of bad microorganisms, example, bacteria. Also, if an infected or an unclean or unhygienic person prepares food, then the infection can then pass from that person to the food and then to the people that eat the food. Right, so I'm going to distinguish foodborne from waterborne, where we can also have water where water may not be potable, that is, it has not been properly treated. It may be a source of infection where it can contain a lot of bad microorganisms. In person to person, we mentioned that a person can spread a bad microorganism by coughing or sneezing, and this then becomes an airborne infection where we say some diseases can spread through the air. And I know you're thinking of a very popular one right now. Last but not least, we have microorganisms, which can be spread via insects, where we say that insects can spread many diseases, and they can do so from simply biting a living organism such as a human. So from this slide, all I need you to take down for me is how do microorganisms spread, and you're just going to take down person to person, foodborne, waterborne, airborne, and insect-borne. With a better understanding of how microbes get around, we can now distinguish an epidemic versus a pandemic. And looking at the words, can you tell me which one has a larger reach? We say that in an epidemic, there's a widespread outbreak of a disease which is infectious, and it can affect many people at the same time. For example, heart disease, there are allergies, cholera, flu, or measles. So an epidemic may affect many people. And then there's a pandemic, where we say it's an epidemic that will affect an entire region in the world. Or we can also refer to a pandemic where the infectious disease may even spread throughout the entire world. So for example, if you didn't know, if you can take a look at it on an internet search, there's smallpox, tuberculosis, which is also called TB, there's HIV, H1N1, and of course, COVID-19. Just to review, we have looked at the spread of a microorganism or microorganisms, and based on that, we were able to distinguish an epidemic versus a pandemic. All right, thank you everyone for listening. Bye.